When I jumped in the Anaconda for the very first time, I really did not expect the ship to have high DPS. After all, Gurista pirate ships are mostly known for their tank. However, the Anaconda at the moment has one of the best DPS outputs out of the 4 currently available faction carriers. And with the latest big patch with the skills, the Anaconda has been vastly improved, and today I will show you the massive improvements that this ship has received. So, the relevant skills for this ship are the shield skills, shield extender skills, the team support, team battle, team combat skills, also very important, and the lightweight ship skills. Now, I have all the necessary skills on level 5, basically maxed out, so I'll be able to give you a very interesting and accurate performance analysis of this ship. Now, the team combat skills are very important, and currently I would say they are probably one of my favorite ones, because they enhance the swarm module quite a bit. Now, the stats of this ship remain generally the same. They haven't changed the ship bonuses at all. After all, they seem to be okay. The Anaconda has a very nice bonus on rocket damage and a bonus on rocket optimal range. So if you want to push the most out of this ship, I recommend that you use the lightweight ships that use missiles, basically bombers, cavalry destroyers. They use missiles and this ship will work really well with them. You also get nice shield resistance and a hit point bonus on the lightweight ships. Now, the Anaconda has almost a million hit points, which is a little bit lower than the default value on the Astarte. The Astarte has over a million, and I believe the Astarte has the highest defense. However, the Anaconda is known for its almost impenetrable shield, and I'll show you how much tank you can get out of this ship, and of course I'll show you the DPS that you can get out of this ship. Now, 7151.40 DPS, I have dual webs, the swarm module is here, activation time 120 seconds, reactivation delay 60 seconds, and here you can check out the other numbers. 25% extra shield resistance, which is very nice. Always a very good thing to have extra shield resistance. Dual boosters, dual extenders, dual adaptives, 1 damage control, and 1 capacitor battery. This is how I used to run the ship before, and for the rigs, this is the DPS build that you can use, the cheap option of course. No integrations needed, you can use the ship in such way. Now, as for the hangar modification, this is the hangar modification that gives me extra destroyers. However, the bombers might actually be doing more damage, and it's actually cheaper to use the tier 1 modification, and later I'll swap the builds just to show you the bomber performance and the destroyer performance. Currently have 3.4 million hit points, 1.4 million in shield. That is a lot of shield. With the right equipment, with the right rigs, I can probably get over 2 million shield hit points, which is a lot. And you can make this ship extremely tanky. Probably one of the hardest to kill shield tank ships in the game. Now, as for the implants and as for the general units, the bombarding implant is basically the way to go. I have 1 extender unit, 1 booster, 1 shield booster output unit, and 1 capacitor battery unit. This is basically what I like to use on most of my ships. However, you can go with any combination that you like, or any other combination that will work for your build and your ship. Now let me undock and let me show you the active stats. Now this is the DPS build for this ship that combines tank and it has some nice DPS to go along with it. Later, in the next couple moments, I will show you the tank build, the tank build that I would use. A very similar tank build that I have on the Revelation that I believe is probably one of the better ones that you can do. Quite expensive, but the ship will almost be immortal. Although nothing is immortal, but you can get pretty close to it with the right fleet and with the right modules. These things can be nearly immortal. 5.9 million hit points, 68, 77, 81, and 84% resistance. 7.1 thousand is the current DPS value. This ship also has the largest signature radius, so it's already pretty easy to hit, but that's also one interesting fact about this ship. 9,219.28 DPS, 7.6 million hit points, 76, 83, 88, 86, and 88% resistance. And with the damage control, 22 million hit points, 92, 94, 95, and 96% resistance. Not a full resistance tank, but you have a lot of shields, and that's definitely going to be very, very hard to go through. Then you have the drone bombs, which basically triple or double your DPS depending on what type of level 30 attribute you pick. For PvP, go with the 300% bonus. For PvE, a remote reload is important, but you can effectively get about 50,000 DPS
Docking
with this thing, and that is a lot of DPS indeed. Now the classic chunk build, triple adaptives, one reactive, one damage control, one capacitor battery, and dual boosters. The DPS remains the same. You lose a little bit of shield hit points, but you will gain a lot more shield resistance. And I'm the type of player who actually prefers shield resistance over shield volume, although in the end I like to say that both options are good, and it really depends on the fleet, depends on the ship, depends on the skills, and in the end it depends on the build as well. Now let me quickly adjust the modules to be just the way I like it to be. Okay, and now it will be time to check out the shield resistance. Now this is still the DPS build, so you get this tank with a nice DPS output. 6.7 million hit points, 95, 88, and 90% resistance, which is still really good. And this is on 1 million hit points. With the defense module active, 8.7 million hit points, 85, 89, 91, and 92%. Added a bit more, which is very good. And we have the damage control, the panic button. And with the damage control, you have 25 million hit points, 95, 96, 97, and 97% resistance on 1 million shield hit points. This is a lot of tank, and this is still a DPS build. Okay, let's dock, and I think I have one more thing to show you here, actually two more things. So with the bombers, I actually managed to get a little bit more DPS from 7.1 thousand to 7.8 thousand, and with the damage, with the defense mode active, that DPS will go to 10,114 DPS, if my math is correct, of course. And that is a significant increase. This is, of course, without the drone bombs. With the drone bombs, the DPS will skyrocket even more. So we are definitely in for some very interesting testing here, because this layout is actually a lot cheaper than the layout with the for destroyers. After all, the hangar modification with the destroyers costs, I think, like 30 billion, while this one costs like a billion or something like that. So you get more DPS with the cheaper option, surprisingly. Although the stars have their use, But on paper, for the paper DPS, the bomber fleet does seem to be working a little bit better. Now, what type of bomber you want to use? Well, it really depends on the type of target that you have. I would recommend that you match the main DPS, basically the highest damage for the correct target. Basically, try to cover the resistance holes on the target. Shoot the target on the holes. That way you will do more damage to them. And this is why it's important to have a bunch of lightweight ships so that you can change them in combat, or change them depending on the target that you have. Okay, now this is still the DPS build. I haven't changed the rigs yet, but I'll change the rigs very soon. Okay, everything is active. Let me just adjust the modules in a better position. Okay, this seems to be okay. This works, and let's orbit. And let's take a look at the stats. 6.7 million, 79, 85, 88, and 90%. Okay, about the same as before. With the defense module active, 10,000 DPS, while the tank remains the same as before. Okay, well, we are in for an interesting ride, that's for sure. And now with the damage control, the DPS is 10,000, 25 million hit points, and this is still pretty good. Don't forget you have the drone bombs, which can effectively triple your DPS. So, yeah, about 30,000 DPS expected, depending on what type of lightweight ships you have. If you have the faction ones, that's going to probably hit about 50,000, 45 to 50,000. So that's currently the maximum DPS output for these ships. As you can see, enormous improvements. I used to have high DPS before, now the DPS is even higher. Basically, I would say it doubled. The DPS again on this ship doubled as well. Now, let's take a look at the tanky build. I have 5,600 DPS, which, you know, is still pretty good. But the tank has been massively improved. 67, 76, 76, and 80% default resistance. Now this is basically a replicated build that I have on the Revelation, very similar to it, focused on maximum possible resistance, and it's focused on shield repair. In the case of the Revelation, it's a mix of repair and resistance, but for this ship I mostly went with resistance, and a build like this is a build that I have on the Revelation that I actively use. It's expensive, but again, it makes your ship nearly immortal. Although nothing is immortal, but with the right fleet, with the right logi, you will be almost impossible to kill. The only thing that might be able to kill you is a massive dreadnought fleet built for DPS, and first they have to kill the logi, and then they have to kill you. So even that big fleet might be a challenge. 11.5 million hit points with the hardeners active. Let's take a look at the defense module. 15 million hit points, 92, 94, 94 and 95% on 1 million hit points. And let's take a look at the damage control. 44.5 million hit points, 97 and 98% resistance. Okay, well, I could technically push that higher if I, change the integrations a little bit. If I add a little bit more shield, I could technically get, 50 million hit points. This is already crazy numbers, and yeah, this thing is tanky. Nothing else has to be said about that. This thing is very, very tanky. You can take the tank as an advantage and just go full tank with this if you have the for it, and the ship will be, again, like I said before, nearly immortal. Now, let's actually take this ship out for a ride and let's see how it will perform. Now, with the recent addition of the new skills, I haven't really noticed any bonus, any new skills that affect the missile lightweight ships. However, it's important to note that all the skills for missiles and turrets are going to be relevant for the lightweight ships. So if you have, let's say, level 5 missiles, it will work for this ship. You basically are required to have these skills in order to take full advantage of the lightweight ships, because they are still ships and they are dependent on the skills that you have for them. So in order to fully utilize the lightweight ships and faction carriers, you have to have good skills for the smaller ships as well, which I think is a very interesting requirement that you need to have in order to take full advantage of these ships. Now, the first thing that I noticed, I feel like the turret lightweight ships are definitely performing better, because I remember getting 10,000 hits by default with the Astarte. Although the rate of fire on the bombers is definitely, I feel like it's definitely a bit higher, the alpha damage on the bombers was terrifying. I mean, my apologies, the alpha damage on the destroyers was terrifying. So there's a big chance that the balance has been changed a little bit. This is the DPS build. For a second I thought that I rolled out with the tank build, but this is the DPS build. So you get higher paper DPS with bombers, but you get much higher applicable damage with the destroyers, which makes the destroyer hangar modification better now, which is interesting. Of course, I still have to do much more testing in order to verify that what I just said, but based on what I see now, I feel like it will take a little bit longer for me to clear this, because I feel like I'm doing less damage with this ship than with the Astarte. The Astarte had about 9.2 thousand DPS, about the same as this ship, just I was using the destroyer fleet, while here I'm actually using the bomber fleet, and it looks like the destroyer fleet is going to clear this faster. Now, it took me about, I think, 12 minutes from warp to finish to clear the same mission with the Astarte using the destroyer fleet. Would be interesting to see how long it will take me to clear this mission, again the same mission, with the Anaconda using bombers. We are comparing higher paper DPS with more applied DPS, and I think the new skills have a very big role in that, because again there's no new lightweight ship skills for missiles, while we have lightweight ship skills for turrets. Now let me quickly just double check that, since I don't like to be wrong, and if I'm wrong I want to correct myself right here and right now. So let's see, light ship gunnery, it increases the turret, navigation, combat. Well, the combat is the only one that increases the damage on both types of light ships, both the turret and missile ones. Well, yeah, there are no skills for the rocket light ships, only the gunnery skills for them. And of course, if you count the combat skills, they increase the damage output on both. So it would look like the turrets are now performing a bit better than the missiles, which is interesting. Before the patch has been released, it used to be the other way around. So now, if you want to get the maximum possible DPS, actually, no, you know what? I'm thinking about other things now, since the turret lighter ships have received the buff on damage, and they have received the gunnery skill. Does that technically make the Vazago and the villain the top DPS spot? Because if I remember correctly, the Vazago has the same bonus on both turrets and missiles, on both turret and missile lightweight ships. And I'll check that real quick, because the Vazago might actually be the highest DPS. Yeah, 10% bonus on lightweight ship turret damage and 10% bonus on lightweight ship rocket damage. Well, since the turrets have the advantage now based on what I see here and based on the damage that I do, I guess the Anaconda is no longer the highest, the faction carrier with the highest DPS. I believe the villain and the Vazago are the current top spots. Now the Astarte might get there as well because it has the same bonus on the turrets. Let me just double check that. 10%, yeah, it has the same bonus on turrets. So all the turrets, all the faction carriers that have a bonus on the turrets, that have a higher bonus on the turrets than on the missiles, are going to push out a bit more DPS than their missile counterparts. Well, I guess that's one way to fix a problem, but it also creates a different problem. Now the missiles are underperforming, or perhaps now the missiles are... You know what? Back when I was talking about the difference between the turret and missile damage on the lightweight ships, I think I did mention something about developers needing to add some new skills for the turrets in order to make them equal to missiles. And I think they did exactly just that. They added skills for the turrets while missiles remain about the same. And when I say about when I'm talking about turrets and missiles, I'm talking about the lightweight ships, about their weapons, not the other default high slot weapons. So still have to do a good old comparison between rocket frigates versus lightweight frigate that uses turrets, and then rocket destroyer versus turret lightweight destroyer. That way I'll be able to come up with a more accurate decision on how much are these two weapon types different, and it will be interesting to see how the performance has been changed with the last big update that has been added to the game. Again, the most notable, the most massive changes that are definitely noticeable is on the lightweight ships. They have been dramatically changed. Their tank vastly improved, the DPS vastly improved. Doesn't mean that the other capital ships haven't been improved. They have been improved. Their tank has been significantly improved, but the most notable change has been done on the new faction carriers. After all, a lot of players complained that the ships felt underwhelming, although I always felt like that they were balanced because of their insane tank. They do feel more tanky on paper than dreadnoughts, but they lack the crazy repairability that dreadnoughts have. Basically, they get the bonus on shield boosters and armor repairs, and that basically makes them ridiculously tanky if they have the capacity to sustain them. While the faction carriers have the Dreadnought level tank, they obviously don't have the Dreadnought level of repair, and that is one of their weakness. Basically, they can hold a lot of damage, but at one point the damage taken might be overwhelmed, and that's when they start to fall down very slowly, but eventually they will fall down. However, if you combine them with a logistic capital ship, then they definitely will live a lot longer than usual. I think there is one more wave left after this one.
Enemy ships detected. We're under attack.
Needless to say, the tank is obviously holding 22 million hit points, 98% resistance on the main damage type, 97% shield left, and yeah, safe to say that this thing is not going to go down easily. I can technically fall asleep and let them shoot at me for the whole night. I'll probably wake up with, I don't know, 10% armor left or something like that, which is kinda crazy. That's how tanky this thing is. And the capacitor does last fairly long, although you will not have the same shield boost capability as the dreadnoughts, so just be wary of that. And as I mentioned before, this ship can be used for PvP, PvE, PvP doesn't really matter. It will work for both scenarios, both builds. Well, all builds that you will see here are definitely going to work really well. I'm thinking about a build that has a lot of shield extenders and a lot of buffer. I think a build like that will work really well if you have one of the shield guardians. Basically, the damage that you take will be significantly reduced, and with a lot of buffer, I guess in a fleet that might be a good idea. However, at this day and age, flying this ship in PvP is a little bit crazy, and I haven't seen a lot of Anacondas in the wild, and I'm talking about the ship, not about the snake. Mostly because the most popular ones are the Vazago and Astarte, which is honestly not to be too odd, because the Astarte is a blood raider and everyone just loves blood raiders. So one of the reasons why that ship is picked. And the Vazago because of the speed and because of the way the skills for that ship work. It has a bonus on both turrets and missiles, so you can use both, and that's why these two ships are one of the more popular ones at the moment. But the first ever faction carrier that has been destroyed was a Anaconda. That's one of the only Anacondas that I have seen. And here you can take a look at the different wrecks that we have. I also like how the lightweight ships are basically marked as player ships. Also very nice. Okay, well, I guess it will be time to dock. I cleared this in 16 minutes. 4 minutes took me 4 minutes longer than with the Astarte using the stars. So there's definitely the difference has been reduced significantly. Now I believe that the turret lightweight ships are actually performing much better than the missile ones. And honestly, that is a very, let's say, a very interesting find, because I honestly did not expect it to change this much, but based on the numbers that I have seen on the skills, it was to be expected. Now, I know a lot of you guys are curious what is the tick that we can get from from this ship, and once the tick arrives I will show you how much I got. I think it's gonna be about 36 million. That's about the number for this type of DPS, and I cleared the whole mission without getting the tick, so I guess I'll have to
Docking request
wait
accepted.
couple minutes to get the tick, and then we can come up to a conclusion on the DPS outputs on this little ship. But so far I have been very happy with the Anaconda. Definitely a good ship, tanky one, and most importantly it is indeed very fun to fly. Okay, 36.4 million, not bad. Actually would probably be more if the mission was longer, but that's the performance of this ship. Again, a very fun to fly ship, and honestly was a pleasure to test it out. And next time when I return, I'll probably be jumping on the Vazago or the villain. So with that being said, if you would like to support me, feel free to like and subscribe. And with that being said, stay safe, fly safe, and I'll see you next time.